Hi and welcome. I wanted to welcome all of the new subscribers to my channel and thank you for tuning in. Today we are making some gingerbread cookies and we're going to put them on a banner. To do that, I'm using a few supplies here. I'm going to be using these gingerbread cookie die cuts and this Sizzix texture. Kind of looks like leather. And that's what I'm going to use to give our cookies kind of like a baked texture. So for the different examples that I was kind of trying out before I did this video, I have this very easy one. I just took a zig glue and some glitter. Then this second one was using I embossed my actual cookie with that embossing folder, and then for the glitter I just used wet glue and some chunky glitter. And then for this last one I used some texture paste on, I had gel printed the texture onto the cookie, and then I used texture paste and glitter, chunky glitter on the icing. So this is what we're going to be recreating today. This is from the jelly plate to make these kind of baked looked cookies. So I'm starting with 140 pound thick cardstock and then some craft cardstock. And then we'll begin cutting out our cookie bases. So I'm using the craft cardstock here and just kind of arranging my cookie pieces, basically getting all of my shapes cut out. And I am going to be cutting out 2 of each of my shapes because I want a front and a back. Since these are going on to a garland or a banner, I want both sides of them to I wanted them to hide the string or the twine that I was using. So for the icing, I'm using this 140 pound cover heavy thick white cardstock. It is very thick and it's a little bit difficult to cut through, so I only did 1 of these little icing pieces at a time. I tried doing like 5 or 6 of them on the page and there just wasn't enough pressure. So if you're using this like a really thick cardstock to do this, I do recommend doing these individually. It just cuts through way better. And again, because this is so thick, I had to use my craft knife kind of poking into the seam. Once it poked through, then those little holes, the little spots came out. But I wanted to use this really thick cardstock because it already gave it so much more dimension just having a thicker cardstock. So you could use just a regular 110 pound Nina white cardstock if that's what you have. And I think the glue and the glitter kind of gives it some texture already. So here I'm using my distressed walnut stain. I'm just putting it on my jelly plate and I'm going to just brayer that out nice and even. And then I'm using that texture that I just embossed 110 pound piece of cardstock, and very, very lightly here, I'm just kind of laying this down and barely pressing with my finger. You want to go very light here so that you don't pull up all of that texture. You want to leave some of that texture behind on the plate. It does take a little bit of practice. So here I have one star side that I already did my texture on. Now I want to do the back side. So I put them together just to make sure I had the right way. So here I have the house, I have the front side and then the back side. So basically they're going to be like opposites of each other that you're making your texture. Here's the candy cane. And just press into those nicely just so that the ink transfers. And then this is the result. And I was okay with if this didn't all come out perfectly. But on these 2 candy canes, it was really light, the design. So if that happens, you can go through another area that has some of that texture still on the plate, and you can just add a little bit more texture in the area where there wasn't that much. And I thought that it looked just fine. And once we do the next steps, you really don't even notice. So I just repeated that same process again, really light touch after adding my walnut stain, spraying it out. Going through all my cookie cutout pieces here, and again, just pressing really, really well into the little cookie pieces so that that transfer goes pretty nice onto that craft cardstock. Once you peel it away, if you're happy with the results, then we basically just repeat that until all the cookie fronts and backs are done. So that's what I'm doing here, just making sure I have the fronts and backs of my matching pairs. Once we're done with jelly plate printing, this is what I have so far. These are my little cookie pieces, but they need a little something. They need to look like they were baked. So to give them the baked look, I'm using the Rusty Hinge to give it kind of like that golden brown color. And then I'm going to follow it up with some vintage photo along the edges, and that kind of makes them look a little cooked. So you can skip this step if you don't want to have the kind of orangey golden color to the cookies, but I really thought that this made them look nice and cooked, and it gave them a little color. It also blended that walnut stain kind of into the background a little bit better. So I really thought as this oxide dried on these cookies that it had a nice coloring to it. So I would recommend it, but you could certainly skip this step. So here's a difference of with the orange, the Rusty Hinge, and without. So I went ahead and did the Rusty Hinge on all my cookies, and now I'm going to add the vintage photo to just the edges. And this really ties in all of the walnut stain and the Rusty Hinge, kind of ties it all together, and you don't even notice that they're that different. It just looks like a nice cooked cookie. So I thought this combination turned out really well. So I went through and finished up the distress ink to the edges of all of my cookies. This is what they look like. And now I'm bringing out my craft mat here. I'm going to work on the icing pieces. I have those all pre-cut out in this little container here. And then I've got my chunky glitter that looks like snow. That's from Dollar Tree, actually. And then I've got this crystal fine Martha Stewart glitter, and then I've got some Recollections white glitter. This one has silver in it, so that's the one I'm going to be using as my fine glitter today. So to make this really simple cookie, what I did was just used my Zig two-way glue. Right now I'm showing you that when those pieces come together, what I did for my cookies is I separated out that middle piece from the outer and the inside piece. The outer and the inside I was going to put on the outside of the cookie, and that inside piece I was going to put on the, I guess, the back side of the cookie. I have a new Zig two-way glue here. You do have to press it down until you see the blue come out. Once the blue comes out, this particular glue, when the ink or when the glue is wet and blue, it's permanent when it adheres to something, and when you let it dry and it becomes clear, then it becomes a like a removable bond. So I really like this glue for lots of different uses. So in this case, I'm using it while the glue is still wet and blue, and I'm using my fine white glitter here from Recollections. I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top. So this one's not going to have a lot of texture, thickness to it other than the thickness of the cardstock, because the Zig glue is a very thin glue and the glitter is a very fine glitter. So I'll show you the difference between what this nice and simple icing looks like and then what it looks like when I use the chunkier glue and the icing with the snow glitter. To adhere these little dots onto the back side of my cookie, I left them intact and put a little dab of glue on each of the little dots. Then I adhered that to my surface, and then I did have to use my craft knife here to kind of loosen up those little dots to remove them from the backing here. And I am keeping that other piece to use on the other side of the cookie. Since I had to adhere those pieces, I already have the glitter on this outer piece, but I don't have glitter on those little dots. So I'm just using my Zig glue, adding some glue real quick to those dots, and then putting the glitter on them. So this one's, if you're in a hurry or you just want a nice and simple way to adhere the glitter to your icing pieces, this is, I think, the simplest one, the technique that I had done. I thought it looked great. This next one I thought was the most difficult, and I think it's because my texture paste was a little bit dried out. So I wanted to just see what it looked like anyway. I was having a really hard time getting my texture paste to stick to the paper. It kept kind of falling off and going through the holes. It just kind of was staying on my knife, and it wasn't super easy to do. And I think, again, if I had more of a fresh container of this texture paste, I've had it for a few months now, I think it might have adhered easier. I ended up just using my fingers and kind of trying to apply it to the surface. So for me, this particular technique took a little bit too long, so I didn't want to do all of my pieces using this technique because it was just already going to take too long. So I did use my craft knife to carve away the texture paste that got into those holes, and that worked easily enough. And while the paste was still wet, I went ahead and added that chunky glitter on top, and I'm using my fingers to kind of press it in so that the glitter doesn't fall off later. So this is what it's looking like. It's hard to tell. I did go ahead and put this texture paste on all 3 layers of this side of the cookie. Doing the same process, adding the chunky snowy glitter. Now for this one, I did not add the fine glitter at all. So I just used texture paste and the chunky glitter. So I'm gluing that onto my cookie base. This is going to be the front of my cookie. The simple one there, that one's going to be my back of the cookie. So now I'm going to show you the difference in how much texture you get when you use both the texture paste and the chunky glitter, as opposed to the Zig glue and just the fine glitter. Again, they're both really nice. They look really good. I liked both techniques, but for my next technique, I wanted to go kind of like an intermediate version. So what I did for all the rest of these pieces is I applied this tacky glue to all of my icing pieces. Then I took, while the glue was still wet, I took a little bit of that fine glitter, not all over. I just kind of did some spots. Then I applied the chunky glitter to the rest of the glue. Using that same technique, I cut out those holes with my craft knife just to make sure the glitter didn't go through those holes. Now here's a little trick. For those thin pieces, the little Christmas tree pieces, I just let this Zig two-way glue dry so that it's removable. Then I stuck my little Christmas icing piece down. That way I was able to easily apply my glue without it getting stuck to my finger too much. Then I applied the fine glitter, just a little bit of it, and just a few of the different areas of the icing, and then for the rest of it I used the chunky glue. Now, doing this over that zig glue, I would say this is kind of like a one and done. So if I did it again, I'd have to have another scrap of paper to adhere my little icing piece to. But it does work really easily. It comes apart, does not stick really bad to that glue because I did let it dry completely. So here's what we're looking at. The difference between these two, this tree has a little bit of that sparkle from the fine glitter. It's really hard to tell. And then this cookie did not have the fine glitter in it, so it didn't pick up on those additional little sparkles. So all the rest of these cookie pieces had the additional fine sparkles in addition to the chunky glitter. I think that was easy enough, and using the wet glue just to adhere it, that I think was easy enough as well. So to me, this one kind of was right in between. So depending on your time and your craftability, I think that this one's really doable. So as I'm adhering all of these pieces together, if they don't go together perfectly, I don't think that's a problem, because icing usually is not very perfect on cookies anyway. So some of my icing pieces were off or a little wonky, but that I think adds to the more natural looking cookie. For this little bell, there were those little pieces inside. I decided not to keep all the little dots. That was just too much to try to keep track of, but I did use the bigger pieces, like the star and the little squigglies. This one was the easiest one. It just had a snowflake and an outer snowflake. Next, I'm going to cut out these little green garland pieces. I guess it's just greenery pieces. I cut it out onto green cardstock, two-sided green cardstock, only because it helped speed things along. So this does help make it so you don't have to color in the entire thing. You could cut it out of white and color it in with two colors of distress ink, a lighter color and this rustic wilderness color, but this definitely helped. I didn't want to forget to do the back side because, again, this banner or garland is going to be visible from both sides. Next, I just kind of shaped those leaves and pine needles just a little bit, just to give them some dimension. So I'm just kind of folding some backwards and some forwards. Then I'm going to take my scissors and kind of cut it in half because I needed it to be a little bit smaller. And then this little piece here on the end has a little tail, so I went ahead and cut that little stem piece off. And I just did that and repeated it to all of my little greenery pieces. And now I am ready to assemble my banner. So got all my little cookie pieces. They look so cute, and they actually look really tasty. I would eat them if they weren't paper. And then I have my twine that I'm going to adhere all my pieces to. This is a gold and white twine that I had. I think I got this one from Michael's a couple of years ago. So I'm just gluing that green garland piece to the twine. And then I put glue on my back side of my cookie. I'm putting the twine in the upper third of the upper part of my little cookie pieces so that they hang down the right way. I was afraid if I put it too close to the center, they would kind of flip and go upside down. So I just wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And I'm putting a little bit of greenery in between each of these cookie pieces. Now it's really coming together and it is starting to look so cute. I really liked how this banner just kind of looked so festive. If you're enjoying this video, I invite you to like and subscribe to my channel, and liking my videos will help get it to other crafters like you. So thank you. Now back to what we were making here. So for the banner, as I'm putting these two pieces, the cookie pieces together, I did want to add a little more to this, so I'll show you that in a little bit. But to finish the banner part, I just used that twine and kind of made a little bow or knot at the end. And then those little loops I can use on a tack or a nail to hang it. So it was pretty simple to close it up. And I just did that on both sides. So my other thing I wanted to add to this was this little holographic glitter that I have. I'm using Glossy Accents, and I'm just applying, these are different sized kind of like dots of this holographic glitter. So I'm just applying the different sizes to the different holes. Not doing it everywhere, but I did find that this really made these little cookies stand out so much more. So you could totally skip this step, or another thing I thought about doing was just sprinkling the glitter on top of the glossy accents, and whatever stuck is what stuck. But in this case, I just put individual pieces into those spots. So here is what the banner looks like. This is out in the sun. It really picks up on those holographic glitter pieces, and it looks just so cute and charming. So if you're looking for a fun project to make, maybe with your kids or just as something while you're watching a movie, this project comes together so nicely. Here's the back side of it. It glistens. It's got all the fun things. It's got the greenery, it's got the cookie, it's got the icing and the glitter. So this was just such a fun project, and hope this is something that gives you some ideas of what to make for the holiday season. You could totally gift this, even put it in a card and give to someone. So thank you for watching my video, and thank you for being here, and I hope you have a great holiday season. I'll see you in the next video. Happy crafting.